Good afternoon and welcome to the Ottawa Economic Outlook event. Maybe one of the most interesting of all time. We're so excited to have all of you here. My name is Su-Ling Ching, and it is my honor to be the President and CEO of the Ottawa Board of Trade. I am joined this afternoon by my co-presenter, Mr. Michael Curran, the publisher of the Ottawa Business Journal, and we are thrilled to be gathered here safely with all of you in our beautiful city of Ottawa. Ottawa is built on unceded Algonquin and Anishinaabe territory. The peoples of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe Nation have lived on this territory for millennia. Their culture and presence have nurtured and continue to nurture this land. We honor the peoples and the land of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe Nation. We honor all First Nations, Inuit and Métis peoples, and their valuable past and present contributions to this land. Your salads are served, so please enjoy them. We have a full agenda today while I just finish my remarks, so please do feel free to go ahead. The Board of Trade is, as you know, the voice of business and a key advocate for economic growth here in our nation's capital. It is really to that end that we are really pleased to partner with the Ottawa Business Journal and all of our media partners here today to host 25 to 30 community and business events throughout the year. All of them are designed to engage and inspire leaders and harness all of your thinking to advance the economic growth of our city. Today is no exception. The Board of Trade, the Ottawa Business Journal, and the City of Ottawa and our partners have hosted this event for 13 years running now. And we have been bringing together and learning from economists, executives, and thought leaders from Ottawa and across the country. Our intention is to share information, generate conversations that aim to collectively and proactively plan the economic growth of Ottawa inclusively and sustainably. It is particularly important during these changing economic and political times to galvanize our local business community, to lock arms with our economic partners and focus on our strengths, of which we have many, and the things that are within our control. The good news is we've done it before and we will continue to do so. I hope that all of you have enjoyed the networking portion of today's event, that you've made some good connections, and I know I've had some great conversations already. So thank you to each of you for being here. I know your time is a precious commodity, and we appreciate you sharing it and your energy and enthusiasm for building up Ottawa with all of us here today. As you know, the Board of Trade is an independent, nonpartisan, not-for-profit, supported by our members and our volunteers. So I wish to express appreciation and congratulations to all the members of the Board of Trade for ensuring that Ottawa has a strong voice of business and that one that advances our mission to cultivate a thriving world-class business community. I would like to acknowledge the volunteer leaders of the Ottawa Board of Trade who have joined us here today from our Board of Directors. Thank you for being here, Brendan McGinty, Megan Wallace, Julie Lupinacci, and Ruby Williams. Thank you for your ongoing leadership in our community. I would also like to express appreciation for our pillar partners for their particular support of our advocacy agenda, including partners like Deloitte, who have joined us here today. Thank you very much for being here. And also to now I don't know how to come back from that. Also, to acknowledge the economic partners, Ottawa Tourism and Invest Ottawa, who have helped us form the newly launched Ottawa Unlimited initiative, which was formed to elevate our profile in the global marketplace. So thank you for being here as well. This event, of course, would not be possible without the support of our sponsors. Our lead sponsor, Hard Rock Hotel and Casino, the City of Ottawa, with special thanks to Cindy Van Buskirk, Mann Lawyers, with special thanks to Neil Schwartz, who you'll be hearing from later today, Algonquin College, thank you for being here, Michael Kakish, and welcome back. Our global partners, Oakwood Designers and Builders and the Casino Lac Limi, for your steadfast and generous support. Thank you to our AV sponsor, Event Design, and a big thank you to our venue sponsor, the Rogers Centre, Ottawa. I've got that down pat now. And yes, thank you to the, okay, yeah, that's okay. And I want to say a special thank you to Nina Kressler, who is joining us here today, for your years of support. In an industry that is so important to us here in Ottawa, you have hosted the world here, and we thank you for doing it. Thank you to all of these sponsors, and just to let you know, our agenda today is robust. We'll start with His Worship Mayor Mark Sutcliffe, who will present the State of the City address. After lunch, we will hear from Deloitte's Chief Economist, Don Desjardins, after which we will host a panel of experts to talk about some of the potential impacts of the new U.S. administration, and we will welcome for that Alison Gifford from Clear Strategy, Catherine Fortin-Lefebvre from the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, and of course Don as well from Deloitte. So it is now my pleasure to introduce a man who needs no introduction. Welcome to the podium, His Worship Mayor Mark Sutcliffe.
Thank you, Suling. Bonjour tout le monde. Welcome everyone. Great to be at this event once again. Lucky 13 apparently for this year. And so great to be at the Rogers Centre, Ottawa, and wanted to thank Nina, as Suling did, for all of her amazing leadership and service to our community over many years now. Thank you to the team here for hosting us today. It's great to see everyone today and to see so many familiar faces. Now, I don't see Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg here today for this speech, but it's certainly interesting to be speaking at this time, the day after Donald Trump's inauguration, and at a time when we're also waiting to find out who the next Prime Minister of Canada will be. That is how we are starting 2025 in Canada and here in Ottawa. I'm relieved at least that President Trump has his sights set on the Panama Canal and not the Rideau Canal. So for now, we're okay. But I think this is a good time to take a look at where we stand as a city. And let's start with the fact that we do live in an amazing city. We are so lucky to live in Ottawa. And let's never forget that. We do have our challenges, but let's never forget how fortunate we are to live in this amazing community. We do have wonderful community leaders in our city, including many of the people who are in the room today, who I see at so many events throughout the year. People who care about our city, people who support the most vulnerable, who invest their time in building a better future for everyone. Nous avons une communauté incroyable avec de nombreux leaders formidables, y compris beaucoup d'entre vous ici aujourd'hui, qui se soucient de notre ville, qui soutiennent les plus vulnérables, qui aussi investissent leur temps pour construire un avenir meilleur. There's so much natural beauty in Ottawa. It's a great place to live. We have wonderful rural villages, suburban communities, and urban neighborhoods. It's a wonderful, safe place to raise a family. We have terrific restaurants. We have amazing museums and galleries, so much culture. The music scene is growing and expanding in Ottawa. We have been building a strong and vibrant economy in our city. We have the highest educated workforce in the country. We have three very strong pillars to our economy in government, technology, and tourism. And I know you know all of this. I think everybody in this room understands how strong an economy we've been building in our city. But I think it's worth repeating to remind ourselves how many other cities have so much going for them. I've lived here my whole life. I've lived my entire life in Ottawa. And when you've lived your whole life in Ottawa, sometimes you take things for granted. You forget how wonderful it is here. You forget how we are the envy of the world. And we do have challenges in Ottawa, and I'm going to speak candidly about a few of them in just a couple of minutes. But I want to share with you that I talk to mayors from all over the world, And when I talk to them, we talk about the challenges that each of us are facing. And there are so many of them that would gladly swap their challenges for ours. There are so many people all over the world who can only dream of living in a city like Ottawa. Il y a tellement de gens partout dans le monde qui ne peuvent rêver que de vivre dans une ville comme Ottawa. J'entends tout le temps des gens qui y ont déménagé et qui l'adorent. I hear all the time from people who have moved here and they absolutely love it. Just a few weeks ago, I spoke with a couple who had moved here from the GTA. Their kids had gone to university in Ottawa and they stayed here. I always love to hear that, by the way. That's a win for our city when people come here to go to university and they end up staying here to work or to start a business. So this couple decided they were going to move here when they retired to be closer to their children and grandchildren, and they absolutely love living in Ottawa, and they much prefer it to the GTA. So let's never forget how fortunate we are to live in and to contribute to this wonderful city. And we do have a lot going for us right now. We just hosted the World Junior Hockey Championships. Thank you to the team at Ottawa Tourism for their great leadership on that. It was a great moment for our city, really special. And I spoke with officials from the International Ice Hockey Federation and from Hockey Canada, and they were absolutely thrilled with the success of that event. They want to bring more events to Ottawa. And speaking of hockey, our new professional women's hockey team, the Ottawa Charge, led the PWHL in attendance last year in the first season of the league. That was incredible. And our Ottawa Senators are competing for a playoff spot right now. They just won a couple of very exciting games on the weekend. I was at the game on Saturday when they came back and tied Boston and then won on the shootout. There was so much energy at Canadian Tire Centre for that game. Felt like a playoff game right there. So we have a lot going for us. We have many more great events to come. Cette année, par exemple, nous organiserons Ironman Canada pour la première fois. Cela attirera des milliers de personnes dans notre ville. This year we will be hosting for the first time Ironman Canada. This will bring thousands of people to our city. There are lots of other events, lots of other conventions that are coming to our city this year. Live Nation is investing in a new concert hall in the Byward Market, not far from here. There are new restaurants opening in the market as well. We're making progress on public transit. As you know, light rail has been one of the most challenging files that we've had at the City of Ottawa, one of the most difficult files that I've had to manage since I became mayor. Comme vous le savez, le train léger a été l'un des dossiers les plus difficiles que j'ai hérité lorsque je suis devenu maire. Nous avons encore un long chemin à parcourir, mais nous faisons des progrès. Il y a 2 semaines, nous avons ouvert la nouvelle ligne Trillium et tout se passe extrêmement bien jusqu'à présent. We still have a long way to go, but we are making progress. 2 weeks ago, we opened the new Trillium line, and it's been going extremely well so far, connecting people to Ottawa South, to Carleton University, and to the airport. This Saturday, we're going to expand from 5 days a week to 6 days, and if all goes well, a few weeks after that, we will get to full 7-day service. And I will tell you, this successful launch followed an extremely rigorous and transparent testing process in November and December. And we are going to be just as rigorous and transparent as we launch further phases of the expansion in the months ahead. And as I mentioned, thanks to the efforts of Ottawa Tourism and the Ottawa Airport, we have a link to the airport now, and we're making progress at securing more international flights to Ottawa. I hear about this all the time. Grâce aux efforts d'Ottawa Tourisme et de l'aéroport d'Ottawa, nous faisons des progrès pour obtenir davantage de vols internationaux. I do hear about this a lot from members of the business community and from people throughout the city. The Air France flight to Paris has been a great success. They've upgraded the size of the aircraft that they've used a couple of times. They've increased the number of flights per week. And in just a couple of weeks, in a couple of months rather, Air Canada will be launching its direct flight from Ottawa to London. So we are making progress. That's going to be a big milestone. Looking forward to that. We are making progress, and we have a lot to look forward to. But as I said, we do face some pretty significant challenges. And I don't want to be dramatic, but I would say a few of them are historic challenges. I'll be honest with you, I worry a lot about the future of downtown Ottawa and the Byward Market, and I know a lot of you do as well. Je m'inquiète beaucoup pour l'avenir du centre-ville et du marché bail. Le gouvernement fédéral a déjà annoncé son intention de réduire ses espaces de bureaux jusqu'à 50%. The federal government has already said it intends to reduce its office space by as much as 50%. That's never happened before in our city. Even though there are more people downtown now since the return to office moves by the federal government in September, we're still not back to pre-pandemic levels. It's going to take years for a full recovery to happen, and we can no longer count on federal government employees to fill that gap. We need to make sure that there are more people living downtown and more attractions to bring people downtown. We also need to see more collaboration between the city and the federal government so that any surplus federal properties are being used strategically. We don't want to see them sit empty and linger and deteriorate. We need to get everybody working together to figure out the best use for these buildings. I think the federal government has a responsibility as the #1 employer and the #1 property owner in the city to work with us on a plan. And I'm going to work with city staff to make sure that happens. Je m'inquiète aussi pour l'avenir de notre économie locale. Hier, comme vous le savez, une nouvelle administration a pris le pouvoir aux États-Unis. I also worry about the future of our local economy. Yesterday, as you know, President Trump talked about imposing tariffs on Canada within a couple of weeks. There is a significant risk of a trade war between our two countries, something that was almost unimaginable a few years ago. That trade war could create significant uncertainty and even economic damage throughout Canada, including here in Ottawa. And we're already starting to hear about job cuts in the federal public service. There was news about that yesterday. That's a huge threat to our local economy, and we need to be ready for it. I've been around a long time in Ottawa and around business development and economic development in the city, so I remember in the mid-1990s when there were thousands of federal job cuts, we got the community working together to rebuild the economy. We all pulled together and found a way, because that's the way we do things in Ottawa. We're going to need to see growth in the private sector to offset future setbacks in the public sector. We must continue to diversify our economy, to support entrepreneurship, to grow more companies, to create more jobs. Economic growth is vitally, vitally important for our future as a city, because economic growth is what drives progress for all our residents. It's what generates the resources that we need to face all of our challenges, including and especially supporting the most vulnerable in our community. And as you know, the number of vulnerable people in our community has been growing. The number of people who are homeless, who are suffering from the opioid crisis or are facing mental illness or food insecurity is growing. And that has a big impact on downtown, it has a big impact on the Byward Market, it has a big impact on our entire city. We've been working hard with other levels of government to get some help. We're putting more money into social services and public safety downtown and in the Byward Market. In our most recent budget, we added $30 million that will be distributed to a number of agencies that support the most vulnerable. We put more money toward food security as well, and I want to applaud the great work being done by the Ottawa Food Bank. Rachel Wilson is here. We just chatted the other day about some of the challenges that organization is facing. Rachel, thank you to you and your team for your amazing work on this. Dans notre budget le plus récent, nous avons ajouté 30 millions de dollars qui seront répartis entre plusieurs organismes qui soutiennent les plus vulnérables. Nous avons également alloué davantage de fonds à la sécurité alimentaire. And I'm very, very grateful to the leadership of the Ottawa Board of Trade, to Sue Ling, to the members of the Board of Directors, to the other volunteers, on building a plan for downtown Ottawa. We all need to get behind that and make it work, because that is the way we do things in Ottawa. We are also seeing, as you know, a rising number of people who are coming to our city seeking asylum, seeking refuge. And that number could increase even further with a new administration in the United States. The last time Donald Trump was elected president, there was a spike in refugee claimants in Ottawa. We may see that again this year. Immigration is a very sensitive topic right now. It's a sensitive topic around the world. It's a sensitive topic in Canada. It's very politically charged. But let's remember that immigration is a federal responsibility. We don't decide how many people arrive in Canada or arrive in Ottawa every year. L'immigration est une responsabilité fédérale. Nous ne décidons pas combien de personnes arrivent au Canada ou à Ottawa chaque année. But as a city, we do have the responsibility to respond to and support whoever arrives here. That is not an easy task. Let's remember, though, that Ottawa has always been a kind and compassionate community. Ottawa has always been a welcoming community. When my mother's family left communist China in the 1950s, they came to Ottawa. My grandparents were just a little bit younger than I am today, and they started their lives over in our city. They left everything behind and came here. Their 4 daughters, including my mother, were between the ages of 11 and 20. They all went to school here and found jobs here. My mother met my dad, started a family, and one of their kids grew up to be the mayor of Ottawa. That's the Canadian story. That's the way we do things in Ottawa. In the 1970s, we welcomed the Vietnamese boat people. More recently, we've opened our arms to Syrian and Ukrainian refugees, because that's the way we do things in Ottawa. I'm really inspired to see some of the great work that's being done by Invest Ottawa and by amazing community leaders like Carla Briones to support immigrant entrepreneurs in our city. I meet people all the time, and in the past I've worked as a business coach with people who have moved to Canada and started businesses. But immigration is a challenging file, and we've had to make some very tough decisions as a city. Over the past few years, we've had to close down community centers and recreation facilities to house new arrivals. Au cours des dernières années, nous avons dû fermer des centres communautaires et des installations récréatives pour loger les nouveaux arrivants. The team at the city is working hard to find better and more permanent solutions so we can reopen those community centers to their neighborhoods. And I'll tell you, that's not easy work. There are no easy answers, and the decisions are not always popular. But the folks at the city, working with partners in the community, are doing everything they can. And I know some people in the community have expressed very legitimate concerns about how that's all rolled out, and I respect that. But let's never forget that we are a welcoming community. Let's never stop looking after the most vulnerable. Let's never forget that the families and individuals who come to our city are our future employees, our future neighbors, our future entrepreneurs, and our future leaders. Let's talk a little bit about the affordability crisis. I'm very proud of the fact that here in Ottawa, we have had the lowest property tax increases of any major city in Canada over the past 3 years. You may have heard in the last couple of weeks that Toronto is looking at a tax increase of almost 7% this year. That's on top of a 9.5% tax increase the previous year. In Ottawa, our average property tax increase over the past 3 years has been less than 3%. À Ottawa, notre augmentation moyenne des impôts au cours des 3 dernières années a été de moins de 3%. Across the city, residents and business owners have been tightening their belts to get through the affordability crisis. We've been doing the same at the City of Ottawa. Wendy Stephenson, our city manager, is here today, and I'm very grateful to her and the team at the city for their hard work on this. Over the past 2 years, we found more than $207 million in savings and efficiencies. That's a 10.5% tax increase that we did not pass on to you and to other residents and small business owners. Now, you may have heard that the other levels of government are getting ready to send you some $200 or $250 checks in the next few weeks. We're not sending out any checks. But that $207 million is a savings of more than $400 per household in Ottawa. And I've been mentioning this to people, and it was gratifying to me on Saturday when I was skating on the Rideau Canal, and a man came up to me with his family, and he actually thanked me for saving his family $400 on his taxes. I was glad to see the impact of all that work that we did. At a time of rising costs and economic uncertainty, we simply cannot add to the burden of our residents and our small business owners with big tax increases. At the same time, though, we must continue to invest in our future. And in the 2025 budget, we're making a historic investment in public transit. Nous devons continuer à investir dans notre avenir. Et dans le budget 2025, nous investissons une somme historique dans le transport en commun. We're hiring more than 100 new police officers, paramedics, and firefighters. We're investing more than $100 million in repairing our roads and sidewalks and other critical infrastructure. We're upgrading major arteries in the city, including Brian Coburn Boulevard in the east and Carp Road in the west. We're putting more money toward recreation, toward culture, toward communities to improve quality of life for residents, because quality of life is one of our greatest assets. Nous allouons davantage de fonds à la récréation, à la culture et aux communautés pour améliorer la qualité de vie des résidents. We're moving forward on a new Riverside South Community Center and Recreation Complex. We're going to be refurbishing the Alexander Community Center. We're investing in the new Barhaven Town Center Civic Complex. And we're putting $10 million toward the William Street Renewal Project as part of the Byward Market Public Realm Plan. And last year we held our first Rural Summit in Ottawa in more than 15 years. As you know, Ottawa is an enormous city. It's more than 4.5 times the geographic size of Toronto. And people are always amazed when I tell them that. You can fit Toronto, Montreal, Edmonton, Calgary, and Vancouver inside Ottawa and still have space left over. A big part of that community is rural. So we're investing in rural roads, and we're investing in other solutions to support our vibrant rural communities. One of our greatest challenges this year is going to be the housing file. As a community, we need to build more homes, and we need to build them faster. At the City of Ottawa, it's not our job to build homes, it's our job to approve housing projects. Just last week, I spoke to the Greater Ottawa Home Builders Association, and I announced a new task force to streamline the approval process. We're going to work hard to find innovative solutions. We're going to consider as many ideas as possible to speed up the process. And we're going to share our progress through a new dashboard on the city website that will show how many and how fast homes are getting approved. But there's a lot that isn't within our control. There's a lot outside our control as a city. Market conditions are a huge factor, things like interest rates. Il y a beaucoup de choses qui échappent à notre contrôle. Les conditions du marché, comme les taux d'intérêt, sont un facteur majeur. Just to give you an idea, between January 2023 and September 2024, the city approved more than 50,000 units, 50,000 new housing units. But of those 50,000 units, only 8,300 have advanced to the building permit stage. So there are a lot of approved units that have not yet been built. It's not just about building more homes in general, it's also, of course, about building more affordable homes. And we have worked hard as a city to secure hundreds of millions of dollars in investment from the federal and provincial governments through the Housing Accelerator Fund and the Building Faster Fund. As a result, there are more than 1,200 new affordable units that are being built right now that will be ready for occupancy between now and 2027. There's some great work being done by our community partners like Ottawa Community Housing and other community housing builders in our city. Also this year, City Council will make the final decision on Lansdowne Park. And I want to underline this because it's a very important decision for our city. Lansdowne Park is a huge driver of economic activity in Ottawa. C'est une décision vraiment importante parce que Lansdowne est un moteur important d'activité économique dans notre ville. I mentioned how Hockey Canada wants to come back to Ottawa. There are other national sports organizations that have also said they want to host more events here. They love it here. But they've also been clear that they won't keep coming back if we don't improve our aging facilities. We won't continue to attract major events like the World Juniors and the World Curling Championships if Ottawa doesn't invest in Lansdowne and other facilities. It's absolutely critical that we invest in Lansdowne because the alternative is actually much more expensive. So yes, we face some big challenges, but we also have some enormous opportunities, and I believe Team Ottawa is ready to take them on. Et il n'y a qu'une seule façon de répondre aux défis et de profiter des opportunités. C'est avec une approche forte, stable et équilibrée. There's only one way we're going to respond to the challenges and capitalize on the opportunities, and that is with a strong, stable, balanced approach where we bring people together. That's the way we do things in Ottawa. Now, there are people in politics, especially right now, who see every challenge or issue as an opportunity to divide people. They see it as a moment to drive a wedge between their allies and their enemies, to go on the attack, to force people to choose sides, to demonize people who have a different perspective. Well, maybe this is because I'm still new to politics, but I see these moments as an opportunity for people to come together, to unite people, to bring everyone together, to work hard. And here's the good news. That's already happening in our city. I was one of the founders of the Ottawa Business Journal in 1995. That's 30 years ago now, hard to believe. Mike and I were partners for many, many years. And for 3 decades now, I've been involved in the economic development efforts for our city. I've witnessed what's been going on with the various organizations that have supported the business community and supported economic development. And I can tell you, at no other time in the past 30 years has there been as much collaboration and coordination among the business and economic development agencies in our city as there is today. We are led by some terrific people at some very significant organizations, including the Ottawa Board of Trade, Invest Ottawa, Ottawa Tourism, Regroupement des gens d'affaires, the Canada North Business Association, the Ottawa Coalition of BIAs, all of our post-secondary institutions, and many, many more. Just last month, the Board of Trade, Invest Ottawa, and Ottawa Tourism signed a historic partnership called Ottawa Unlimited. I was very proud and very impressed to see this new level of collaboration around a shared vision, and I'm excited to see the results. There's great teamwork happening right now, and it's very timely because we're going to need it in the months ahead. So I want to thank Su Ling and the team at OBOT, the members of the board, and the leadership of all the other great organizations that I mentioned for all of their hard work and collaboration. And to all of you in this room today, you're all people who have chosen to be involved in the community. You don't have to put up your hand and play a role, but you do. You do it because you care about the future of the city. And that's why I put up my hand to serve my community as well. At City Hall, there's great collaboration happening as well. I promised when I ran for mayor that I would get people working together again. J'ai promis, lorsque je me suis présenté à la mairie, que je ferai en sorte que les gens travaillent ensemble. And I've heard from a lot of residents that they've noticed a change in tone at City Hall over the last couple of years. They're glad to see their elected officials collaborating rather than fighting with each other. And even when we don't agree, the tone is, most of the time, very respectful. In December, the budget passed by a vote of 22-3 with resounding support from councillors throughout the city. We've also been working closely with our federal and provincial partners, and yes, I've been fighting very hard and very vocally on the issue of fairness. I've been clear about the fact that Ottawa needs our fair share of funding from those other 2 levels of government, and I will never, ever stop doing that. J'ai été vocal sur le fait qu'Ottawa a besoin de sa juste part de financement, et je ne cesserai jamais de le faire. But we are working together. We've secured more than $1 billion in funding for Ottawa over the past 2 years, and I am hopeful that we will have more good news to share in the coming weeks. When I look around this room, I see a lot of leaders. I see people who have chosen to live and invest in and support their community, to support Ottawa. It's the same thing I experience when I'm at the Rural Summit or I'm skating on the Rideau Canal, as I did on the weekend, when I'm visiting a community center or a library, or I'm speaking to a group of volunteers. And I'll tell you, that inspires me. It inspires me to keep going. It inspires me to do everything I can. It gives me the energy I need to continue my work as your mayor. I'm so grateful to the people of Ottawa, and I continue to be very excited about our potential as a city, notwithstanding the challenges that we face. Next year, Ottawa will celebrate its bicentennial. It will be 200 years since Bytown was founded in 1826. I don't think the founders of Bytown could have imagined what we have today. We have so much to celebrate. We should be very grateful to the people who built this city over the last 2 centuries. But I think we have a responsibility. We have a duty to build an even better city for the future. Nous avons une responsabilité. Nous avons le devoir de construire une ville encore meilleure. We have a duty to our children and grandchildren. We have a duty to the people who are arriving in this city and will be the leaders of the future. We have a responsibility to make Ottawa everything it can be. So yes, we face some big challenges, but we can still be optimists. We can be proud of our city. We can be inspired by its potential. We can face these challenges and come out stronger. We can be hopeful because we know in Ottawa we work together. So let's never forget how far we've come. Let's never forget how lucky we are. Let's never forget how much opportunity we have. N'oublions jamais combien d'opportunités nous avons. Let's never underestimate the value of bringing people together, even while others are trying to drive people apart. Let's continue to strike the right balance between supporting economic growth and showing compassion for our most vulnerable residents, because that's the way we do things in Ottawa. Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
It is all very difficult, to put it very plainly. But I'd like to present our forecast for the economy in 2025, and then talk to you about, well, the not as great outcome that is certainly possible. I guess the one thing we all know is that we are operating in a period of great uncertainty. It's not just what's happening south of the border with the new administration providing not exactly clear guidance on how they're going to proceed, but we are also living in a time when we have lots of geopolitical events that are taking a lot of resources, that are causing a lot of uncertainty for decision makers across the globe. And as a result, we have seen financial markets become increasingly volatile. And we've seen businesses, as an example, the Conference Board, they had a survey of 1,700 global CEOs and CFOs. And what those leaders of businesses said was, in fact, that 85% of them were considering changing their supply chains over the next 3 to 5 years. So all to highlight that all of this uncertainty, this fragmentation, is certainly weighing on how business is being conducted and what big decisions these business leaders are trying to make as we go through this relatively difficult time.
I'm just going to ask each of you maybe to make a few opening observations about the current situation and prospects that we have as it relates to the new U.S. administration. So, Donna, since you just finished up, maybe I'll lean on these guys first. So, Allison, do you want to start us off?
Sure, absolutely.
Great, thank you.
So from a political perspective, I think what's different this time than the last time is just the level of preparation we've had going into this. When I think of the first time around, we had a bit of a Camelot moment with new Prime Minister Trudeau. There was a lot of unity. There was a lot of coming together as a team and dealing with Donald Trump. I didn't see that this time. I saw a lot of politicians going individually on U.S. networks, having a lot of our grievances aired, our national unity grievances aired in front of the U.S. government. And I think, a U.S. diplomat said to me yesterday, can you imagine if a governor in the U.S. was going out and speaking on behalf of the president? And I was like, no, I guess when you put it in that context, Prime Minister Ford does look a little strange to the Americans. So that, I really don't think that put us on the best footing going into this. I think we showed a lot of vulnerability that we're going to have to make up for now. And I'm genuinely hopeful that that happens. I think every day we're taking it a bit more seriously and getting our game faces on. So I'll pass it over to you.
I mean, let's be honest, this is game-changing, a 25% tariff. It has not been put in place officially yet, but we have every reason to believe that it likely will be with an asterisk. So it's creating a lot of uncertainty. At the Canadian Chamber, we're getting tons of questions on impacts, and truthfully, we don't know how it'll manifest itself. Nobody knows. And if there's one thing we've learned from engaging with our U.S. counterparts is that anybody who tells you what Trump is going to do are fools. Nobody knows except himself, and there's plenty of examples of that. I mean, just yesterday we were fielding a lot of media calls asking for a reaction to the fact that Canadian tariffs on Canada weren't mentioned during his inauguration speech, which we were very pleased to see. But I think I did my last interview at 4:30 yesterday, and the reporter asked me, well, isn't this positive? Are you happy that there's no tariffs? And I said, the day is not over yet. And, sure enough, that evening, off the cuff, signing executive orders, President Trump mentions that he will likely, obviously it's not for sure, be instituting those 25% tariffs across the board on Canada on February 1st. And so, if there's one message here that we're learning is things are changing quickly, and nobody knows what's going to happen. We know our government doesn't know. We don't know, but we're preparing as best we can. And I would say part of that preparation entails telling the story of the importance of the relationship. I think most Canadians, it's a fundamental understanding, especially amongst business people, why it's so important to be working with our U.S. counterparts, a lot less so for our American friends. So just at the Chamber with our networks, we've been spending a lot of time over the last year, especially in the last couple of months, telling that story of the integration of our economies and how it will deeply hurt American businesses and consumers if these tariffs are put in place. And that's a story that's just not well known, right? So for example, our business data lab at the Canadian Chamber came out with a report earlier in the fall modeling the impacts of a 10% tariff. Seems like a long time ago, but remember when we were talking about a 10% tariff and we were like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. And then November 25th came and the number rose to 25. And so our economists modeled that 25% at costing Canadians $1,900 a year per person, Canadian, if we got to this point of 25%. But for the Americans, and maybe this is the more important point, the impact on them is also large. It's not as big, but it's still noteworthy. It's about $1,000 a year per person, USD. So the contrast there is just so stark in that we know that Trump has spent so much time talking about the lack of affordability. And when we hear Trump supporters talking about why they voted for Trump, a lot of them will mention that it's getting prices back to where they were, being able to afford groceries again. And wow, this will not do that. It will be inflationary. And so, that is part of our arsenal is like we are much better working together. If we want to grow the economy, we should be collaborating, not fighting each other.